Have you ever said yes while something inside you quietly whispered no? Not because you wanted to, not because you agreed, but because it felt safer. Safer than disappointing. Safer than explaining yourself. Safer than risking someone's opinion of you. Most people think people-pleasing is about being kind. Psychology tells a very different story. People-pleasing is not kindness. It is self-abandonment disguised as politeness. And it doesn't start loudly. It starts quietly. So quietly that most people never realize it's happening. This video breaks down every level of people-pleasing from level 1 to level 7. Each level looks harmless on the surface. Each level feels normal. Each level slowly pulls you further away from yourself. As you watch, you won't just learn what people-pleasing is. You'll start to recognize where you are inside it. So ask yourself one question as we begin. Which level am I? Level 1 is where almost everyone starts. And because it looks so small, it's rarely questioned. This is the level of saying sure when you unsure, smiling when you feel neutral, agreeing just to keep things smooth at level 1. People-pleasing doesn't feel painful. It feels civilized. You don't want to be difficult. You don't want to be rude. You don't want to make things awkward. So you say yes, not because it matters, but because it feels easier than saying no. Someone asks, "Can you help me real quick?" And your brain does a fast calculation. It's not a big deal. I can handle it. It'll only take a minute, so you agree. But here's the psychology most people miss. At level 1, you're not afraid of rejection yet. You're afraid of micro-discomfort. The tiny tension of saying no. It's a slight pause in conversation. The possibility of being seen as less agreeable. Your nervous system has learned something subtle. Harmony is more important than honesty. And because the cost seems small, you don't notice the habit forming. But every unnecessary yes teaches your brain something dangerous. My needs come after social comfort. Level 1 feels harmless, but it's the gateway. Because once your brain learns to override small boundaries, it becomes easier to override bigger ones. Level 2, the approval adjuster. Level 2 is where people-pleasing becomes strategic. You're no longer just being polite, you're monitoring reactions. At this level, you subtly adjust your tone, your opinions, your behavior, based on who you're with. You laugh a little louder around certain people. You soften your honesty around others. You hide parts of yourself that feel too much. Not consciously, automatically. Your mind is constantly asking, do they like me right now? Did I say the wrong thing? Psychology calls this external self-validation. Your sense of worth begins to depend on feedback. If someone responds warmly, you relax. If they pull back, you panic quietly. Cure S, the inner rule forming at level 2. I am safer when I am liked. So you become adaptable, flexible, easy to be around. People often describe you as nice, chill, low maintenance, but inside, something subtle is happening. You slowly losing track of what you actually think, what you genuinely feel, what you truly want, because you're always adjusting the signal to match the room. Level 2 doesn't feel fake. It feels considerate. But it comes with a cost. You start confusing acceptance with connection. And those two things are not the same. Level 3, the emotional manager. Level 3 is where people-pleasing becomes emotional labor. At this level, you don't just manage yourself. You manage everyone else's feelings too. You sense moods instantly. You notice tone shifts. You feel responsible for emotional balance. If someone seems upset, your mind jumps to, is it my fault? Did I do something wrong? How do I fix this? You become the peacemaker. The diffuser, the emotional buffer. Say things like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I understand. It's fine. Let's just move on, even when it's not fine. Psychologically, level 3 develops in environments where conflict felt unsafe, emotions were unpredictable, love felt conditional. Your nervous system learned early, keeping others calm keeps me safe. So you anticipate needs. You prevent discomfort. You smooth tensions before they surface. People often rely on you emotionally. They vent to you. They lean on you. And from the outside, it looks like strength. But internally, something exhausting is happening. You are constantly overriding your own emotional signals to stabilize others. Anger becomes guilt. Discomfort becomes silence. Boundaries become apologies. And slowly, resentment begins to grow. Not explosive resentment. Quiet resentment. Like the kind that whispers, "Why does no one take care of me?" But even that thought feels selfish, so you push it down. The invisible shift before level 4, here's the moment most people don't notice. Somewhere between level 3 and level 4, people-pleasing stops being about kindness. It becomes about identity. You're no longer asking, "What do I want?" You're asking, "Who do I need to be so this doesn't fall apart?" This is where saying no starts to feel dangerous. And this is where guilt appears instantly. This is where self-betrayal becomes automatic. And this is where people-pleasing turns from a habit into a survival strategy. Level 4, the guilt-driven yes. Level 4 is where people-pleasing stops being optional. At this level, you don't say yes because you want to. You say yes because not saying yes feels wrong. The moment someone asks for something, guilt appears instantly, not after you refuse, not after conflict. Before you even respond, your body reacts first. A tight chest, a drop in the stomach, a quiet anxiety. Your mind fills in the story. They'll be disappointed. They'll think I'm selfish. I should be able to handle this, so you say yes. Even when you're tired. Even when you're overwhelmed. Even when something inside you is begging for rest. Psychologically, level 4 is where boundaries become associated with shame. At some point in your past, you learned having needs causes problems. So your brain reframes self-protection as selfishness. Saying no doesn't feel neutral. It feels like moral failure. You over-explain your boundaries. You apologize for things that require no apology. You add emotional cushioning to every honest statement. Instead of "I can't do that," you say "I'm really sorry. I feel terrible. I wish I could. I hope you understand." Okay. And even then, the guilt lingers. At level 4, people-pleasing is no longer about others. It's about escaping internal punishment. The yes becomes a way to quiet the guilt, a way to regulate anxiety, a way to feel like a good person again, but the cost is growing. Because every guilt-driven yes teaches your nervous system, my discomfort is less important than their comfort. And the more you reinforce that belief, the harder it becomes to hear yourself at all. Level 5, the silent resentment. Level 5 is where the emotional debt comes due. You've been saying yes for a long time now. You've been accommodating, understanding, patient, and something inside you starts to harden, not loudly, not dramatically. Quietly, you still show up. You still say yes. But now there's tension underneath it. You start thinking things like, why am I always the one adjusting? Why does no one notice how much I give? Why do I feel invisible? It's this unexpressed anger. But because anger feels unsafe, you don't express it outward. You turn it inward. You criticize yourself for feeling bitter. You shame yourself for wanting reciprocity. You tell yourself, I shouldn't feel this way. So the resentment leaks out sideways. Passive silence. Emotional withdrawal. Subtle distance. You're still nice, but less present. Still helpful, but colder. Still agreeable, but tired. Psychology calls this suppressed autonomy. Your needs don't disappear. They go underground. And underground needs don't fade. They rot. At level 5, relationships start to feel draining. Not because others are cruel, but because you are constantly betraying yourself to keep them. And the most painful part? People often have no idea. They see someone who's dependable, easy, strong. They don't see the resentment, because you've trained yourself to hide it. So the story in your mind becomes, no one would care even if I spoke up, which makes you even quieter. Level 6, the lost self. Level 6 is the most disorienting level of people-pleasing. Because at this point, you're no longer sure who you are without it. You've been adapting for so long that your original preferences feel distant, blurred, unreliable. When someone asks, what do you want? Your mind goes blank. Not because you don't have desires, but because you've stopped checking in with them. Your internal compass has been outsourced. Do you feel uncomfortable making decisions? You doubt your instincts? You seek reassurance for even small choices. At level 6, people-pleasing becomes your identity. You don't just do it, you are it. Being needed feels like purpose. Being useful feels like worth. Being agreeable feels like safety. The idea of disappointing someone feels like annihilation. Psychologically, this is where self-worth is fully conditional. You feel valuable only when You're helpful, you're accommodating, your emotionally available. Rest feels lazy. Boundaries feel cruel. Saying no feels like becoming someone unrecognizable. So you keep going, but your body starts to rebel. Chronic fatigue, emotional numbness, sudden bursts of anger that don't make sense. These aren't flaws. They're signals. Your system is overloaded. At level 6, the cost of people-pleasing becomes existential. You're not just losing energy, you're losing yourself. Here's the truth most people don't hear until it's too late. People-pleasing cannot stay at level 6 forever. Something has to give. Either you continue shrinking until there's nothing left to give, or your system forces a reckoning. This is where people experience burnout, emotional shutdown, sudden boundary explosions, or walking away without explanation, not because they're dramatic, but because they've been silent for too long. And that brings us to the final level, the level that changes everything. Not gradually, not gently, but completely. Level 7, the breaking point. Level 7 is not a choice. No one calmly decides to stop people-pleasing at this level. No one gently transitions out of it. Level 7 happens when your system says, I can't do this anymore. It might look like sudden emotional collapse, total burnout, explosive anger that shocks even you, or complete emotional numbness. Sometimes it looks quiet. Sometimes it looks messy. Sometimes it looks like walking away without explanation. But make no mistake, level 7 is not weakness. It is self-preservation. At this point, your nervous system is exhausted from decades of self-erasure. Your body has been carrying what your voice never could, and now it refuses to cooperate. You wake up one day, and even small requests feel unbearable. Your tolerance disappears. Your patience evaporates. Not because you've changed, but because you've finally run out of capacity to betray yourself. This is the level where people say, I don't recognize myself anymore. But the truth is more honest. You are starting to recognize yourself for the first time. Why the breaking point is necessary? Here's the uncomfortable truth psychology confirms. People-pleasing does not end through logic. It ends through emotional saturation. You cannot think your way out of a pattern that was built for survival. At some point in your life, people-pleasing kept you safe. It helped you belong. It reduced risk. It minimized harm. Your nervous system chose it for a reason. But survival strategies don't retire quietly. They have to be outgrown. Level 7 is what happens when the cost of continuing becomes greater than the fear of stopping. And for the first time, your body realizes something revolutionary. Discomfort will not kill me, but self-abandonment might. The grief people don't talk about what follows level 7 is not immediate confidence. It's grief. Grief for the version of you that never got to be honest, the needs that were ignored, the boundaries that were never spoken. You may feel sadness toward your younger self. You may feel anger toward people who benefited from your silence. You may feel confusion about who you are without the role of the easy one. This grief is not regression. It is integration. You are finally allowing yourself to feel what you suppressed to survive. And that is not weakness. That is healing. The relearning phase, after people-pleasing, after level 7, something strange happens. You start saying no. And the world doesn't end. Some people adjust. Some people leave. Some people reveal who they really were. And that can hurt. But also clarifies everything. Begin to notice how much energy honesty gives back. How peaceful silence feels when it's chosen. How light life becomes when you stop performing at first. Boundaries feel awkward. Your voice may shake. Guilt may still show up. But guilt no longer controls you. You start realizing guilt is not proof of wrongdoing. It is proof of conditioning. And slowly your nervous system recalibrates. You stop reacting. You start responding. What healthy no actually looks like a healed person is not aggressive. They are not cold. They are not unkind. They are clear. A healthy no sounds like, that doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. I need to think about it. No over-explaining. No apologizing for existing. No emotional performance. Just truth. And here's the most surprising part. When you stop people-pleasing, you don't lose connection. You lose misalignment. The relationships that survive become real. The ones that don't were never built on you to begin with. At the deepest level, people-pleasing was never about other people. It was about abandoning yourself to feel safe. Healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before you learned that love had conditions, before you learned to shrink, before you learned to perform. And when you live from that place, something powerful happens. You stop asking, "Am I too much?" and start asking, "Am I being true?" That is the real freedom. Every level of people-pleasing had a purpose. Every yes protected you once. Every silence meant survival. So this is not about blame, it's about awareness. Because the moment you see the pattern, you stop being trapped inside it. If you recognized yourself in level 1, you have time. If you recognized yourself in level 4, your boundaries are waiting. If you recognize yourself in level 7, you are not broken. You are waking up. The most important question is no longer, which level am I? It's this. Which level am I ready to leave?